Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We are coming to the last session, and it's the panel discussion on data within manufacturing and supply chain. And I think, obviously, data has become such a topical question, and you will hear people say that data is the new oil. This is now one of the most important challenges facing all industry, and indeed society, in terms of how do we deal with all this data and big data. Well, we have a panel of experts here who are going to shed some light on it. We have Garry Connolly from Host in Ireland, Denis O'Brien, which we heard earlier, from GS1. We have Howard Knott from Irish Exporters. We have Tom Mulvey from the Institute of Technology in Blanchardstown. And we have Roy Rothwell from eMaint. And so rather than me tell you who they are, I'm going to give them all 30 seconds to a minute to tell me their life story and their level of expertise that they're going to shine upon our discussion. I'll start with you, Tom, at the end.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Howard.
That's a bad start.
I'm on the wrong end.
Okay, I'm Howard Knott. I'm here for the Irish Exporters Association. I have no confidence whatsoever in this subject, so but I do know quite a bit about supply chain and shipping and transport, and indeed even about Brexit. So we'll chat from there.
Great.
Hi folks, my name is Roy Rothwell. I'm from a company called eMaint. eMaint data and IT is really what we do. So the whole topic of information in relation to the main buzzwords today around manufacturing and technology, for us it's all about the data that's captured in the process of maintenance, management and reliability information. So the information that we capture from technicians as they're doing their work, improving reliability in all of the facilities, manufacturing and otherwise, that are around about us here today. It's all about capturing the information so that we can do something with it and turn that data, the masses of it, into knowledge to improve reliability, productivity and whatever KPI that you want to talk about. So Roy Rothwell, eMaint, maintenance management software.
Thanks, Sid.
Hello, my name is Denis O'Brien and I'm the Director of Standards with GS1. We're a global standards organisation, so my interest in this area is just in the standards to enable people to share data and in a structured way so that when they do get it and share it, they can make sense of it and make use of it.
Excellent. Thanks, Denis.
Garry Connolly, President of Host in Ireland. I'll balance the panel. I know a lot about data and nothing about manufacturing. One of the problems always at this graveyard shift is that you get more people on the stage than you do in the audience. So for my part, I'm going to ask questions, try and engage the audience. But effectively what we do is we try and go around the world explaining to people why data rests in Ireland. And it's nothing to do with the weather.
Thanks, Garry. Tom.
Hello, my name is Tom Mulvey. I'm a lecturer in the Institute of Technology in Blanchardstown. I'm in the School of Business, and my area is management, especially operations management and supply chain management. So I have a lot of interest in the whole area of data and big data and data analytics and how it enables business to be more productive and more efficient. Thank you.
Great, Tom. Thanks. Let me kick it off the discussion with talking about how important data has become in recent years. And Denis, you might start with you in terms of visibility and traceability within the supply chain. Why has it become so important and such a hot topic?
Well, obviously in the last few years, the supply chain, the nature of supply chains has changed dramatically. Way back 15, 20 years ago, you'd find that supply chain and production methodology was to make as much of a product as efficiently, as quickly, and in as big a batch as you could. That is completely turned on its head now. Now the idea is customization, meeting customer demands at the point of sale, so almost mass customization. And the idea is to have much smaller batches and to be much more responsive, so you don't hold large stocks of product. Now, in order to do that, the amount of data you need to watch your inventories, watch your expiry dates on products, your batch codes for traceability, the amount of data that you're using within your business has grown exponentially, and the amount of data you need from suppliers and data that you're sending to customers is just beyond comparison. It's also set to get even worse, because with the advent of Internet of Things, there's going to be data bombarding every business. As I said earlier, you can imagine a pallet transmitting data effectively, saying, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, this is my temperature, I'm exposed to sunlight, this is my geographical location. So the emphasis on data is dramatically changing even over the last couple of years.
Great. Garry, you're traveling the world talking about data. What do you think is driving the data revolution?
What's in your pocket? Smartphone. We tried this before. For any of the people in the audience who are old as I am, we tried this before in .com. We built all these big sheds called data centers. We built the infrastructure, and then we gave people a Nokia 6310 with text. Didn't generate anything like the type of demand, interface, and interoperability. Just to give some context on how much data there is in the world. You'll have thought leaders and tech people talk about zettabytes, right? A zettabyte is 10 to the power of 38. Who even knows what that looks like? Nobody, including the techies. A zettabyte of data, if it was a grain of rice, will fill the Pacific Ocean. 3 miles deep, every critical mass, all land mass fill it. There's 28 zettabytes of data being created every year. 2.2 zettabytes are in manufacturing. It's one of the fastest growing year-on-year sectors. Why? Because of compliance. Because of compliance, traceability, etc. So think about your industry. You've got 2.2 grains of rice, billion, zillion, trillion, and you have to manage it. That's the challenge you have. We're going to create data. The next stage is manage it and measure it. What's driving it is the insatiable appetite for people to measure and to get KPIs from it. And if you give us an example, my own child got a new 8 megabyte camera. She can generate in 4 minutes of video, probably all my Word, Excel, and PowerPoint files in size-wise, in 4 minutes. And that's before we get to 32 gig of cameras. So there's no end to it, as I think you said earlier. By 2022, only 2% of the data generated will be from humans. We haven't started in the machines, talking to machines, to come up with an algorithm to tell another machine to give another machine an instruction to generate more data. So we're only entering now into the stage where humans are only irrelevant to this whole data explosion. And that's when you have to start integrating the machines so that, you know, am I allowed curse to say late in the day? Shit into a system, you're going to get shit out. And there's going to be lots of shit. And you're going to have to work out with big data analytics, with big data spectrums, how you're going to actually look at the data. Well, what's driving it effectively is the ease of use to generate it with the handheld devices.
And Tom, moving to you, talking about handheld devices, that's the human element. And obviously you're with the Institute of Technology in Blanchardstown, so you're training and educating the users. How is data now being forming part of the educational process for those data miners and engineers that are coming out of our institutes and universities?
Okay, Sean, there's an awful lot more emphasis now in most third-level institutions on data analytics and, as you say, generating data scientists. I think that'll be the new job of the future, becoming a data scientist. There's a vast amount of vacancies out there globally for people who have third-level qualifications in data science, data miners, data engineers, data analysts, to work in the supply chain. So we in the third-level sector are trying to encourage all our students to develop an expertise and to research that area. We'll be putting a lot of emphasis on modifying our courses, working with industry, and even seminars and conferences like this help us to structure our courses around data analytics and trying to emphasize to our students that that's where the jobs are for the future. It's often described as the disruptive technology. And we're encouraging them to be disruptive in a way by demanding that their courses are structured like that. So the whole area of STEM, you know, science, technology, engineering, maths, they have to have those skills to get these well-paid jobs, very well-paid jobs in that sector. Okay.
Great, thanks. And Roy, you're at the coalface of maintenance and in facilities. What are you seeing on the ground in terms of how this data is being managed, mined, and utilised for efficiency?
Well, there's probably three parts to the whole thing. The first point really is the garbage in, garbage out, and the vast quantities of data that's around. So it's quality over quantity, which is by far the most important thing when it comes to that topic. Secondly, in the business that we're in, when it comes to I suppose, the topics of what was going on the stage here today. The Procter & Gamble topic this morning, I talked about, almost 30 locations around the world where there's facilities being run, maintenance engineers, maintenance technicians, reliable equipment, keeping equipment up and running, and there was some KPIs that were presented around reliability and productivity and OEE and all of that kind of thing. So the second perspective really is, what value is the data that all these systems have, and what contribution can it make to you? And the third thing is coming back then to the education and even the universities and so on. The engineers and the reliability engineers that are graduating, that they can make a contribution by exploring what's going on here with this data. So in the world that I operate in, we have technicians who have handheld devices and other tool for their toolbox, who are out there doing the work, keeping the equipment running, keeping manufacturing up and running, improving reliability. They're capturing so much data in the palm of their hand in that tool that when we capture that data, what can we do with it then? So it's then the reliability engineers can come into play, uncover all of the knowledge that's embedded within that data and turn that embedded data into knowledge for improving quality, reliability, call it what you like, the KPI, that's going to turn 28 reliable facilities around the world into another 28 somewhere else.
Great, thanks, Ray. I might hand it to Howard. Howard, your background is really in the area of transport and logistics. So while you say maybe perhaps data is not your experience and expertise, but you must be seeing data now creeping into transport and logistics on the basis of raw materials to factories and production units and finished goods now travelling and data being used to manage that entire process.
Yes, Sean, that's absolutely right. In fact, just really to pick up one of the earlier points about the generation of data and a lot of it not being done by humans. One particular instance that's quite useful in this conversation is that one of the major shipping lines, I'm sure you've all heard of them, Maersk, have now got a situation in which all of their refrigerated containers on these up to 18,000 TEU ships are data connected in such a way that the temperature, the whole atmosphere, etc., within the container is known, and also the exact location of that container is obviously known. But in order that you don't have 18,000 containers trying to talk at the same time and producing just a gabble, what they have managed to do in the next stage of their development is that those 18,000 containers nominate one of them to be the spokesman. So the basic thing is, ship is ploughing along over the equator. So container number 9,332 has an issue that his temperature has gone wrong. He tells the spokesman, if you like, who then passes the message on. And then somebody at control adjusts the temperature of 9,000 whatever. So that you have already got people dealing with the fact that the data is too massive. Because it's not just one of these ships around the place. There are hundreds of these ships chasing around all at the one time. So that's one sort of very simple example. But the whole issue, when you see how transport has the volumes have increased exponentially. I mean, even last night on TV, they were talking about flowers coming from Kenya, that you had 7 to 8 747 freighters a night going from Nairobi to Amsterdam. It's just mind-boggling, the volumes. But that can be done because the systems are in place to get the right information from the grower to the end user, and also to keep the condition of the product in the right place. So yes, data is hugely important.
And I suppose, Garry, maybe I'll throw this out to you first. So given the fact that so much data is being generated on a daily, monthly, annual basis, beyond anything we have perceived before, all of that data must be stored somewhere. So we're seeing now, and I read recently with the IDA, we're looking for, a survey of Ireland to see where we could place more data centres, because Ireland has now become a centre of excellence, location of excellence for data centres. Why is that, and how are we going to meet that demand of storing this volume of data safely?
It's a good question. The first thing to answer is we've always been, so become is actually incorrect. if you can think about how data has evolved from a punch card to a floppy disk to a CD to a fob to the cloud, all Ireland has done is evolved as we've consumed data and how we've exported data. So Microsoft came here in 1982. They were stuffing 5.25-inch floppies into a box, putting it into a 40-foot container by hundreds of thousands and delivering it to Duisburg. Now what they do is they connect it to the cloud on a fiber optic cable and it gets to the dude. So all data centers are the evolution of how we consume data first. Why has Ireland become this place of preferred option? Well, it's easy. The 5 Ps. Our pedigree. We've been doing it for forever. Amdahl, Wang, Siemens Nixdorf, all these guys, mainframes, mini, floppy disks, to the computers, to Dell, to Microsoft, we've always been doing it. That's the pedigree. The policies, you just can't get away from the fact that we've got a fixed corporation tax strategy. We understand our responsibilities with respect to data privacy, data compliance, data IP. So the pedigree, the policies, the people, the power, and the pipes. When you blend the 5 together, then you have an optimum place to host data. And that's basically why Ireland now has become this optimum place. And the other thing, which can't be forgotten about, particularly with respect to Brexit, is the fact that Ireland now has become the only location, not about the English, I'm not sure about that, the only geographic location in the EU 27 that has a common law basic structure. And guess who our biggest market is? North American professionals who make hundreds of thousands out of being able to interface with other professionals who understand common law. They can't do that if they're talking to civil law people. So it's the fundamental language of choice in the whole data privacy side of things. So that's one of the reasons as well.
And I guess, and feel free whoever wants to jump in on this one, that obviously there's demand, there's technology, and when you have this amount of data, obviously there must be regulations around it. So the rollout of regulations, particularly I believe in May of 2018, the general data protection regulations that are going to come in, what's driving that and how is that going to impact on data in supply chain and manufacturing companies on a day-to-day basis?
Okay. There has been individual states put data privacy directives together. So at this moment in time, the most lobbied data protection regulation ever lobbied for in EU is called GDPR. And each EU 28 state must comply with it. Every company must comply with it. If GDPR is not on your boardroom first agenda, you're in trouble. Your first thing on your boardroom, this is not a technical challenge. This is not a security firewall issue. This isn't a company governance issue or a compliance issue. It's a human right. They're ranking now with the GDPR your right to own your data to be forgotten with individual companies at the same level as water and oxygen. And you think, oh, well, that's only for the hyperscales, or it's only for the born on the internet, or it's only for people who hold consumer information, employee information. Everybody's got employer information. That's an anybody that can be identified by a human number versus a person. 4% global revenue, that's not the issue. Your reputation. Reputation is the number one thing that we are struggling with at the moment in the world. I think Brexit demonstrates that. I think the US elections. More people now today are taking their terms of reference off Twitter than Reuters.
I haven't much regard for Twitter, I have to say.
Well, I'll ask the audience, what do you think last year's word of the year was by Oxford Dictionary? Put it in context, the era we're living in. Anybody? Post-truth. Post-truth. Post-truth is basically the era that we're in now, where people are discounting the facts towards how they feel. And that is with a hyphen. Sorry. Post-truth, right? That's the era we're living in. And it's directly equivalent to 140 characters in Twitter will dictate more people than a Reuters newsfeed. End of.
Interesting.
So
I'm living proof of that. Dennis, tell me about you're in standards now. So tell me about how regulation will impact on standards, and do you think that companies and organizations are ready and are actively preparing for such regulation?
I'm not sure many of them are that aware of it. But the point I was going to make earlier was about the zettabytes of data, massive data storage. We are experts in that area within Ireland. We have an excellent reputation worldwide. Unfortunately, that doesn't directly impact on most small to medium enterprises. They're struggling to manage a couple of hundred gigs of data. They're struggling to share data with their customers and their suppliers. That's a more immediate challenge. Also, small to medium enterprises, in Ireland in particular, are now falling behind their counterparts in other European countries, let alone in Asia, where they're advanced, they're moving on, they're skipping our current technologies and moving to the next level. And the challenge there is in making people aware of the new technologies, the new standards that they can use, so they're not reinventing the wheel every time they get a new customer or every time they have a new supplier. They're evolving their traceability systems, their supply chain management systems, and they have 15 different ways of sharing data. There is a global standard. We need to make them aware of it. Then they can start putting their data into the cloud. And only when it's structured can they properly protect it.
So you have been informed and warned. And Roy, tell me, so if people are not ready out there in the organizations you're dealing with, your customers, your clients, is there an opportunity for you or others to come in and try and help them, or is that part of your space? Or where do you see that whole regulation going?
Well, I suppose the things that would drive our business are the fact that the products that we sell are out in the cloud, so folks struggle with that. The other thing then is, where's the data and where's my data and how secure and safe is that? So international standards protect that, and the hosting arrangements with the organizations where the data centers are will also dictate safety and security there. So as long as we have protection around the data centers where they are and that they're audited, and that we know that my data is separated from your data, and that my company's data is not going to be upset by any mingling or sharing or hand-holding of data, then we're okay. So what drives our business is that, we're a cloud-based computerized maintenance management software company. Our FDA-regulated clients are very concerned about where their data is. They will put in place the appropriate, validation of that to ensure that their data is safe and secure and that it's compliance ready. And particularly with FDA-regulated companies, they're going to go to very, very extreme levels to ensure that their data is protected.
Well, obviously we've seen things like breaches with Google and their data, and I mean, some of it can be perhaps just human error, and some of it can be deliberate hacking. I mean, how serious do you think are organizations taking that whole security piece at the moment?
Well, it depends on the level of criticality that an organization is going to put on their data and where it is, and to ensure that it's safe and secure. So it depends on the risk, and companies need to make their own risk assessment as to what they're going to do there. So again, we'll cite FDA-regulated organizations that are dealing with, sophisticated equipment, sophisticated information and data that's very, very, intelligent. So it depends on the risk. And it depends then on what they're going to accept, and then it'll depend on what level of safety and security they're going to accept, knowing where their data is, because they need to know that it's held in a data farm or a data center somewhere.
And of course, Garry, you're dealing with this on a day-to-day basis in terms of Host Ireland and your own expertise. I mean, where do you see the risk? Where do you see organizations? Are they ready for the potential threats that come from hacking or accidental breach?
Okay, just to address one of the points that was made. GDPR on the 25th of May 2018 is not year 2K. It may or may not affect people. This is statutory obligations at the boardroom level that they individually are accountable to know at the C level where the data is, whose it is, what traceability outside of FDA, it circumvents all of your industry. This is across the board. This is where you are accountable, Mr. CEO, directly for the data of you and your sub-supply. It's nothing to do with firewalls. It's nothing to do with security. They are just like, if you were asking, in this case, if you were asking somebody to design a house, your industry, would you get a locksmith in First, if you were designing a house, would you ask a locksmith to come in and put the locks in?
Well, I want to make sure it was fairly tied down now.
You bring an architect in, and then you bring in the
then
locksmith.
design.
So
Yeah.
I'm sorry if you're firewall people out there, but the firewalls are actually downstream. This is a company governance top-level issue. If you don't know about it, you're already behind the curve. The second thing is, with regard to security, don't worry about the ones you hear about. It's the ones you don't hear about that actually you should be much more concerned about. That's what's called ransomware. It's rife, where we break into your system, we don't tell anybody, but if you don't want us to tell everybody, you give us a couple of million. It's been going on for forever. AT&T were hacked in the 70s, 80s for their telephone systems. And basically what's happening is that the data that gets out on the public domain, that's only a tip of the iceberg. So of course firewalls, regulations and stuff, but it's a bit like bird flu, right? It's not until a farm or something in Ireland gets absolutely hammered that people say, I have to do something. Do it now.
And then you're playing catch up.
You're playing catch up. Our international reputation as a global location for the hosting of digital assets will be judged by our readiness and our awareness. Because we have the #1 data protection commissioner in the world. She's in the crosshairs of every other country. Why? Because she's a philosophy of in front of the GDPR engagement. They don't like that in Germany. They want you to do whatever you want to do and we'll trip you up. Helen Dixon will say, if you do that, I will trip you up. They don't like that.
And Tom, if we are at the front and we're going to be at the forefront going forward, where do you see the training, the expertise, the development that colleges, universities, because one of the things that we begin to see out there in industry is our job vacancies. We heard about it earlier in terms of engineers and software engineers, but even in terms of the data analytic engineers, the data miners, there seems to be a dearth, a gap within this space, that we don't have enough people to keep up with the demand for what Gary's talking about.
Yeah, I think it's a sort of a short-term problem. I think inside the next few years, the penny will drop with a lot of people, both in third-level institutions and in industry, that need to collaborate an awful lot more to influence students to actually study these types of modules and to influence third-level institutions to design the modules like that. And I think it'll be a short-term gap. 3-4 years' time, I think we won't have such an issue. I think the whole emergence of the Internet of Things that you're probably all grappling with at the moment, that's going to drive people into this space as well. And people need to understand that there's an explosion in positions related to the Internet of Things as well as to data analytics. I think the two converging will encourage people to get into that area. Again, going back to what we've been talking about, this GDPR, I think the heavy penalties that are going to be inflicted on organisations that don't comply, those heavy penalties are going to insist on people taking this very seriously in the near future.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, go finish your point, yeah?
No, I was just going to make the point that Garry mentioned that in 1982, Microsoft came here in 1982. No, I predict that by 2022, that Microsoft and their data centers, instead of putting the stuff into the cloud, I think if you look at the research that's coming down the line, is that they're going to consider putting the data centers into the ocean. There's research there to show that they're actually experimenting and piloting putting data centers under the sea. So I think by 2022, perhaps, we won't be talking about building a big data center out in Clonee or down in Athenry. We'll be talking about Microsoft putting data centers into big tin cans and dropping them on the bed of the ocean. I think that's where it's going to in the future.
So on that, in terms of predictions, maybe what I'll do to sum this up is to get everybody 30 seconds to tell our audience, what's the one thing that, if there was a takeaway from today, that they need to bring back to their organizations and their team and their people and their strategy for their organizations. Give us your 30-second message, and I'll start with you, Roy.
Well, in the company that I work with, we're an international software company. The bottom line for us is that we've got 22 people working in an office here in Dublin. There was nobody here 3 years ago. So that's one good thing. The development team that develops our software are dealing with the next version of our product. And it's going to be all about how we deal with software in the cloud. So software in the cloud, and the very fact that we've got 50,000 people logging into our system today to ensure that we know where their data is, that it's safe and secure, and that it's in the cloud, but we know where it is.
Lovely. Howard, your 30-second summary
Okay.
advice.
Right. Okay, just one quickie. In 1982, Microsoft came, and we used to bring in, I was running a shipping line at the time, bring in 20 to 40-foot containers a week of paper from Sweden for the manuals. Remember the manuals you got with your computer? Oh, that stopped. Pity. We made serious money out of that. Back to my 30 seconds. It's in a way, except that I think that yes, all of this is terribly important, and it is certain that as things become more and more complex in a post-Brexit world, manufacturers, exporters are going to need to know an awful lot more about their product, and other agencies are as well. So the really big task at the moment, it's something that's been around for 10, 15 years, is the great single windows. And that has got to be sorted, that data is put in once and that's it. It's in the system for all possible users. So that would be my one thing.
Great. Thank you very much, Howard. Dennis.
You just stole my thunder, Howard. I was going to say we're all concerned with big data and we're all concerned with data protection. I think we have a much more immediate problem. Not stopping people getting at your data, is letting them at your data. You want to be able to share data, you want to have it in a structured format, so regardless of your database, your technology, your ERP system, you can actually get at the data and make sense of it and make use of it. So I think data sharing is a much bigger challenge than data protection. It's much easier to lock down your network and keep everybody out than it is to open it up and let everybody in. And I think that's what's going to happen. There is no supply chain without collaboration. And you need data, you need to share your data to collaborate effectively.
Great. Garry, your 30 seconds.
Ultimately, do things because you want to, because it's the right thing to do, not because you have to. Get over this whole idea that your data on premise in a server in a room that the cleaning lady can go and tap into is more secure than a fibre optic cable. It's nonsense. Be acutely aware of GDPR. It's going to define every business, every industry, and don't worry about the fines. 4% global revenue up to a maximum of 20 million is not going to hurt some of the big guys. Reputational loss is the biggie. So do the right things the right way because you're going to have to.
And harder to recover from reputational damage.
You
Thanks,
can't really.
Garry.
Think of BlackBerry. Did BlackBerry ever recover?
No. Good. Thanks, Garry. Tom, you're going to get the last word here.
Okay, I suppose from my perspective, my 30-second takeaway for everybody would be around upskilling, encouraging the next generation and encouraging ourselves also to upskill in the area of data analytics and data science, and also upskilling in the area of Internet of Things. These are the two areas that I believe we need to encourage more upskilling in. And I suppose an unashamed plug, in our college we are offering a Master's in the Internet of Things, a Master's of Engineering in the Internet of Things, if people are interested. Institute of Technology, Blanchardstown.
That says an awful lot, doesn't it? It's a great note to end on. Go do your Masters in the Internet of Things. Can I have a round of applause, please, for Tom, Garry, Denis, Roy, and Howard. Fascinating and informative.